How do you drive success and satisfaction? So this is one of my favorite questions because it's filled with contradictions. Like a lot of things in organizational physics, it seems contradictory at first, and then once you get down to the causal level, you go, "Oh, okay, I see that it's really only one thing that drives success and satisfaction." And in this video, I'm going to share with you that what that one thing is. But first, let me just point out some of the more obvious contradictions that you might hear when you are trying to find answers to have more success and satisfaction. So let's say you had a chance to interview 100 of the world's most successful people, and you said, "Hey, what's the secret to your success?" Well, you'd hear things like you've got to fight hard and be determined and focused. You've got to develop your skills, and you got to be educated. You got to do the thing that only you can do. Or maybe you might hear, "Well, you got to just be lucky, who knows?" Or you got to find the right opportunity. Now, if you were to ask 100 of the world's happiest people, said, "Hey, what's the secret to your happiness?" You'd hear a different set of answers, wouldn't you? Well, you've got to forget yourself and lose yourself in service to others. You have to have faith in a higher power. You've got to do what you love to do and be in the flow, right? This definitely a different set of answers on what leads to success versus what leads to happiness. And let me just drive that point home with a simple chart. So this is a standard distribution curve or a bell curve. And what it says is if you take any population set and measure it on some qualities, it'll break out with about 95% in the middle. And then you'll have outliers on either end, about 2 to 3% on either end. So if we were to take 100 professional baseball players, right? They're all super talented, and put them in a standard distribution curve, we'd end up with 2 to 3 who are the best of the best, right? The Mike Trouts, the Derek Jeters. Now, most of us live our life thinking if we can just get into this 2 to 3% zone in our area of expertise, then we'll also be happy. But the data says otherwise. There's a really interesting study of high achievers in all walks of life, politicians, entrepreneurs, artists, entertainers, and they did a measure of authentic levels of happiness. What they found was that only about 10% of those high achievers are actually also happy. So 0.2 to 0.3% of a population set are high achievers and highly happy. Call them the happy high achievers. So imagine that. You take 1,000 of the rich and the famous, put them in a ballroom. Only 2 to 3 people in that entire room are going to be not only successful, but also happy. So what I want to do in this video is explain the root cause of success and happiness. They're actually not contradictory. They flow from the same fundamental premise, the same understanding. So I'm going to give you that lens in this video so that you recognize what leads to success and happiness in your own life, also any system that you want to manage, from your family to your business or even your society. How we're going to approach this problem is from a systems view. A systems view just means that, hey, we don't try to reduce things down to ever smaller parts. Instead, we just look at the totality. How does this thing work as a system? And the metaphor I like to use for a system is a dotted circle. So the circle can be as small or as big as you want it to be, yourself or your family or your company. And it's dotted because it just recognition that there's no system exists in isolation, right? It's always in interaction with its environment. So from a systems perspective, we know this. There are 2 laws called laws of thermodynamics that determine how energy behaves in a system. And the first law is called conservation. And it just means that at any given point in time, a system has a finite amount of energy. It's got to get new energy from the surrounding environment. For example, let's take your business. It has a finite amount of energy. And if it doesn't get new sales, new customers, new resources from the surrounding environment, it's quickly going to perish, isn't it? That's why you need to go get food from the fridge. Notice that you're not just a physical system, though. You're also a mental, emotional, spiritual system. And so that's why you seek out integration and connection with friends, family, information, entertainment, because you have a finite amount of energy. You got to get new energy from the surrounding environment. If you were put into solitary confinement, your mental emotional system would atrophy, disintegrate, right? If you were trapped in a desert island, if you didn't have access to food and water, you'd quickly perish. So the reason why is you're dealing with a finite amount of energy. The second law is called entropy, and entropy is the reason why you're falling apart or deteriorating over time. It just means that stuff happens, things fall apart over time. So here's a great cartoon of entropy in action, right? The artists, no matter how beautiful they try to make their sculpture, over time, it deteriorates, it disintegrates, as well as the artist, right? It's a fact of life. Entropy is always at work in every system. So recognizing these 2 laws of thermodynamics allows us to create a formula. It's called the universal success formula. I'm going to talk about success first, and then later in the video, I'm going to tie it back into happiness. So what it tells us is that success is just a function of two things. It's integration over entropy. Now, I'm going to define both of these terms, and then I'm going to show you how to put the formula into action. Integration is very important. The more integrated you are with the environment, the higher the probability of success. To be integrated with the environment means that you have aligned your capabilities with opportunities. Now, not all opportunities and capabilities are created equal. Your goal is to align growing opportunities with unique capabilities. If you look at the world's most valuable companies right now, I think it's Exxon and Apple, you'll see that the market values them so highly because they're both serving dynamically growing industries with lots of demand. And both of those companies have developed a set of unique capabilities to serve those opportunities. Apple, for instance, it has unique capabilities in retail, e-commerce, product design, global supply chain management, and there's a huge demand for mobile information and entertainment at people's fingertips. Highly integrated, unique capabilities with a growing opportunity, great value, great potential success. Exxon, it's the same thing. Growing demand for petroleum products. They have mastered the entire supply chain from finding the oil and gas to extracting it, shipping it, and retailing it. Notice that these companies are positioned in the center of their own ecosystem. So if you buy an iPhone or a MacBook, it's very easy for Apple to extract new energy from you, right? You buy an app, you buy a song, you buy software. It's easy for them to keep extracting. They try to make it effortless to get new energy from you into their own ecosystem. Same thing for Exxon. If you own a car, you need to go to the gas station. It's very easy to extract new sources of energy from you to them. Now, you can still get by, make a living, serving a shrinking opportunity with unique capabilities for a time. The corollary to Apple would be Microsoft. So Microsoft has unique capabilities, especially in client server and desktop software. But just notice the environment has shifted, as the environment is always doing, and there's shrinking demand for client server and desktop applications. Everything shifted to the cloud and web and mobile. Microsoft's capabilities don't align nearly as well into this new market opportunity. And they are still successful, but they're no longer the cool kid on the block, right? Like they were a decade ago. They're no longer as successful because the opportunity has shifted. They're no longer integrated well in that environment. Similarly, you can make it with generic capabilities in a growing opportunity. Down here, this is kind of like being a professional services provider, maybe a real estate agent. There's a growing market demand for real estate, and you're just a generic real estate agent, no problem. You can make a living there. A lot of competition, hard to differentiate yourself, but you can get by. But if the market shifts and the real estate market collapses, well, that's a world of hurt that you want to avoid. During a boom, your brother and your uncle may have become a real estate agent, but during the crash, they're quickly trying to find ways to do something new with their life or to position themselves uniquely in that market as a foreclosure specialist or the high-end home specialist in a certain zip code. So you'll see this dynamic all the time of companies trying to shift out of shrinking opportunities into growing opportunities and with unique capabilities. By the way, all of advertising and marketing is an attempt to differentiate one company's capabilities from another by helping them to stand out. Hey, this is why we're unique. This is who we serve. This is why we do it. That's all of advertising and marketing, is trying to get attention and point out what makes a brand unique. Now, the same thing is true for individual. You're after opportunities that align with capabilities, and both of those things need to be there. So that's integration. Now, below the line is entropy. Now, entropy is really interesting here in the formula. And what it measures is the level of energy that's lost in the system in order to keep entropy in check, make decisions, and get the work done. So why this formula is really powerful is the recognition that available energy, remember you have finite energy, it has to first go below the line, keep entropy in check, to make decisions, to get the work done. Only after those internal needs are met, and if energy is available, does it go above the line to do integration. And here's the thing to keep in mind. The higher the entropy, the lower the probability of success. For instance, let's say you have a friend in the hospital. Well, this is a physics problem. Your friend has a finite amount of energy. Let's say they have cancer. That's entropy. They have a high level of entropy in their system. They have to use most of their available energy to heal themselves. Once they're healed, entropy goes down. They now have more energy available to go out in the world and be in integration. So if you went to visit your friend in the hospital, the doctors and nurses would say, hey, keep visiting hours short. They recognize that the patient has a finite amount of energy. They have high entropy. They have to let the patient rest and heal to lower the entropy in the system. Then once that patient's healed, they can go out in the world and be in integration again. Marriage is a system. If a couple is moving through a fight or a toxic divorce, that's a big entropy cost to the system. They have a finite amount of energy. So when the woman goes to work today and she does a sales call, she puts on a show, right? She does her very best to be in integration, to help find how her organization's capabilities align with the opportunity within this client. But she's dealing with the fight. She's dealing with the fallout in her relationship. So she knows in the back of her mind that she's not really on the top of her game. Once the relationship is healed, entropy lowers. She now has more energy available to be in integration out in the world. Sports is a wonderful lens to see this interplay in action. So you might be a GM of a professional sports team. Naturally, you're looking for players who have high capabilities. You've got an opportunity, you need the capabilities. However, what kind of players do you want in your locker room? You want players who keep entropy low, which means they're team-oriented, easy to get along with, fit well within the culture, or players who make entropy in the system high, right? Those elite athletes who are me focused and they shift the locker room and make it into a toxic culture, right? If you're a good GM, you got to balance the need to get capabilities with how that player fits in your system so that you keep entropy low. Because if entropy gets high, you're going to lower your probability of success. Business, you see this all the time. Here's a screenshot from the movie The Social Network. This is really a story of integration over entropy. Now, Facebook had a lot of drama, right? A lot of entropy in the system. It's a wonderful point to make that entropy will always be there. Your job as a leader is make sure that integration is always higher than entropy. And that's what happened in this case. Huge growing demand, lots of sources of financing, and Facebook was able to continue to develop its capabilities to meet that market demand despite the fact that entropy was high. So integration just has to be higher than entropy. Now, you increase your probability of success the lower that entropy is. But your goal is always to keep integration higher than entropy. And here's a final example with the federal government. Now, what a mess the federal government seems to be. It's a physics problem. It certainly has capabilities and opportunities. It has finite energy, though. If entropy in the system is high, the politicking, the infighting, the backstabbing, it's hard to make decisions and implement them quickly. So as long as entropy is high, don't expect a lot from your federal government. It's a physics problem. If you want the federal government to be more successful, you want to lower entropy in the system. So therefore, it has more energy available to be in integration and service to its population. Let's use an example of your business, and let's imagine that your business has 100 arbitrary points of energy, and right now 50 of those points have to go to keep entropy in check, make decisions, keep everyone on the same page, get the work done. That would leave 50 points available to be out in the world, meeting customer needs, making sales, developing new innovations. If that was your business, I'd say, hey, pay attention here. Your goal would be to lower entropy. If you could lower it by half, that would mean a 300% improvement into top line performance. That's pretty awesome. Happiness. Now, back to happiness. It's the same formula. Happiness is also a function of integration over entropy. Let me show you an example. Back to the chart we looked at. There's 2 to 3% are high achievers, but only 0.2 to 0.3% are happy high achievers. If you look at that, at first it seems like the happy high achievers do the same things as the high achievers. Both sets are highly focused. They have great discipline. They have goals and vision, and they get support. All that stuff that you'd read in a self-help book. But what the happy high achievers do differently than the rest is they only allow activities and relationships into their life that are additive to them, where they experience getting more out of those relationships and activities than they put into them. Put another way, they make sure that integration is high and entropy is low. That sounds strange when you first hear it, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Imagine an employee in your company who's an outstanding performer. They show up to work each day, and that employee's thinking, I love this place. I can't believe they pay me to work here. Notice that employee feels like they're getting more out of the activity than they're putting into it, even though they're putting in a lot. And you as their boss or manager, you're thinking, I wish I had 100 more of this employee. And they show up every day on time. They're a joy to work with. They produce at a high level. You're getting more out of that relationship than you put into it. Entropy is low and integration is high. Same thing is true for a successful marriage. In a successful marriage, both partners feel like they get more out of the relationship than they put into it. Integration is high entropy is low. So this is the secret to both success and happiness. Success is a function of integration over entropy. Now, how do you apply this in your life? Well, one of my favorite ways to do it is to do an entropy scan. Now, available energy flows from inside the system out. So you start with your health and you say, okay, looking at my health and vitality, is it costing me energy or is it giving me energy? If it feels like it's costing you energy, that's a sign of entropy. A leaky vessel gets more leaky, so you want to plug the leaks. You ask yourself, okay, my health is costing me energy. How can I restore my health so that it's additive to me? What changes do I need to make in my exercise routine or my diet or my activities so that it becomes additive? And you go the next layer out to your primary love relationship, okay? Is it costing me energy or adding to my energy? If your primary relationship is costing you energy, you want to focus on that. How can you shift it, repair it so that it's additive to you and your primary love relationship? If both parties feel like they're getting more out of the relationship than they put into it, then that's additive and it increases your probability of success across the board. Next, you go to your primary relationships at work. How are the relationships with your management team? Are any of them costing you energy? If it feels like you're getting less out of the relationship than you put into it, then that's stealing from your success and happiness. How can you shift those relationships so that they're additive to you and additive to them? Do you have the right people in the right roles? Do you have aligned vision and values? Do you have a clear structure? Are you pursuing the right strategy? Do you have a good team-based decision-making process in place? All of those things are attempts to lower entropy so that integration can be higher. And you do the same thing with your clients. You look at your client base. Which of your clients are costing you more than you're getting in return? If you want more success and happiness, you want to eliminate the drains. You want to shift those client relationships that aren't additive in totality to your business. So this is the secret to success and satisfaction. In order to have more success and happiness, you want to minimize the drains and maximize the gains.